So let's go ahead and get started. It's kind of a cool topic, but we can get through it pretty quick, or we can get through it pretty lengthy. It's a lot better when you guys talk about the things that you are seeing out there. But our objectives for this course, we're going to identify what are natural pest controls. Exactly what are they? How do we find them? How do we use them? We're going to identify what are pests, and then we're going to identify how the natural pest controls can work. And then last but not least, we will identify ways that we can use these natural pest controls. And what we're seeing with our lawn care customers and, typically our landscape management customers, people do not want Roundup to be sprayed at all. We've had two major clients, one being a homeowners association and one probably being the most prestigious residential client that we have, just based on their zip code, where they are. And they have asked us not to spray any Roundup, any chemicals, or anything on the property. Now, that makes for a challenge when you've already got your contracts submitted, signed, and acknowledged, and now they're wanting you to pull weeds by hand. Can't do that. You got to go up on price. Even if you're just busting them down with a weed eater, you can't do that. So one way that we can prevent some of the weeds coming up in our turf grass would be implementing some integrated pest management techniques. We could start mowing the grass a little bit higher, maybe shading out some of those weed seeds from coming up. But this is going to be a situation where we are going to have to educate our customers on what it is that we need to do, since they don't want spraying done at all on their properties. It kind of drives me a little bit crazy, and we're actually thinking about letting these clients go as customers because it's just not fitting into our business model. Is anybody else seeing that? Homeowners and property management companies not wanting pesticides used at all?
Well, I have one client that's got a Florida Bethany and a nutsedge problem, and she doesn't want any pesticides. And I just kind of told her, well, find somebody else, because I don't know what to tell you. I mean, or sell the house and buy a different one.
Yeah. What kind of pest did she say she had?
She has Florida Bethany and nutsedge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In the bedding. We don't do lawn maintenance. We do bedding only.
Gotcha.
And it's rolling in from the neighbors, and it's just everywhere. Yeah. And so, like, I know Speed Zone does a good job on the Florida Bethany, and I know you could use some sedgehammer, and there's a lot of things you can use, but they didn't use any of it.
They don't want it.
Yeah. You got, because we could come and pull all day long, and we don't have time.
It's going to come back.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the nutsedge is easy to pull, but like you said, you're going next week, you're going to be back. It just that fast of a grower. So, but that's what people are wanting now. They're wanting less pesticides used on their property. But the key is, are they willing to pay the price for us to go in there and do the work manually? Probably not. Probably not. So with natural pest control, in this lesson, we will look at the balance of nature and some of the fundamental ways in which living organisms can control their own population and the populations of other living organisms. And so Mother Nature, she is smart. She knows what she's doing. But us, meaning us humans, we have messed up these ecosystems, and it is up to us to kind of bring them back into play and to help us with our landscape business. So obviously, when we look at all living organisms, we are including the subset of organisms that we regard as pests. Now, there are situations where one living organism can be a pest in one situation, but could be a welcomed guest in another. Can anybody give me an example of such a organism that we would see in the landscape? What'd you say? Was that Willis?
I can't hear what he's saying at all.
Is that Willis?
No.
Where's that, Christopher?
I said a bee.
A bee? Okay, yeah. It's a welcome guest when we're wanting our flowers to pollinate, and we love them at our strawberry patch. You know, it gets everything cooking, but we don't want to get stung by one. What about in the actual landscape or lawn care situation?
Worm, because they aerate the soil, but then the moles like to eat them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Can anybody think of a plant? That is a welcomed guest in certain situations, but a tremendous pain for us.
Clover.
Clover? Where is it welcomed at?
Isn't it as a like an overseeding crop, like a wintering overcrop?
Mm-hmm. And you know, people have hired us to sow clover in, like a food plot for, their farm. What about something in our turf grass? Bermuda. Exactly. It is a welcomed guest if you are a big sports fan. You want to play golf on Bermuda grass. You want to play football and baseball on Bermuda grass. But if you've got a customer with tall fescue, you do not want to see that Bermuda creep in. And so
into beds too.
In the beds, yes. It's going to get into pine needles. It's going to come up in
everything. It's terrible when it's in juniper.
Yep. And you know what? We can't pull that, can we?
Nope.
It's got to be sprayed. It's got to be sprayed. But what's one way that we can actually implement an IPM program to help reduce the amount of Bermuda that we could have in our tall fescue? Mulch, heavy mulch. Yeah. In the shrub beds. How can we keep it out of the turf grass or reduce the amount that we may see?
I don't do turf maintenance, so I wouldn't know the answer to that.
What about if we mowed it at 4 inches? What's mowing the fescue at 4 inches going to do to that Bermuda?
It's going to choke it out.
It'll choke it out. The Bermuda needs that sunlight, needs that full sun. It's going to shade it out. It's going to choke it out. So good job. So what is natural pest control? Well, it is simply pest control that occurs in nature without any prompting from humankind. It just exists. Like I said, Mother Nature knows how to keep things in check, keep them in balance. And it's a rough world out there. I'm glad I'm born a human. I know humans can be mean to each other and do wrong things, but to be an insect out there or to be a rodent or whatever, I think I would choose being a human every single day over that, instead of having to fight to stay alive and to fight for the food. But we've disturbed this great system, and we must learn how to reestablish its effects. Understanding these natural principles will help you tremendously in managing pest problems. Furthermore, these concepts are critical to the development of a successful integrated pest management program. Now, the clients that are not wanting us to spray, we need to start talking to them about integrated pest management. It doesn't mean that we're not going to use pesticides at all. It means that we would use pesticides as a last resort. It is part of a program, but you're not going to use it until it's the last resort, last bit of hope that we would have to rid our properties of these pests. So we've got to educate our clients. We got to start talking to them about that. And we're going to have to start monitoring for the pests that we typically just go in and spray. Now, it's a little bit hard to do an IPM program for a turf grass management program for the simple fact a lot of our applications are based on the calendar. We are just going to put out pre-emergent, the same time every spring. We're going to do the second application of pre-emergent a little bit later. We're on a schedule. So IPM is a little bit more difficult, I think, in the turf grass, but there are several programs already out there developed, by the universities, by extension agents that we can reference. And like I said, for one, is mowing the grass at 4 inches is going to choke out the Bermuda. It's going to prevent the germination of some of these weed seeds that are already there. But we have clients who complain about the Roundup being sprayed are also typically the same ones that don't want to see the grass mowed at 4 inches. They want it mowed at 3 inches. Some of them even want it mowed shorter than that. Well,
see what on the coast.
Huh?
On the coast, we don't have fescue on the coast.
Exactly. Exactly. That's going to stop, Raleigh Durham area. And we have some warm season grasses here too. We have a few clients that have warm season grasses. And that would be a whole different,
I have that's got some Bermuda growing in the zoysia, and I want to say it's emerald zoysia.
Yeah.
And, how tall can you mow that?
Yeah. Well, and with zoysia, you don't necessarily have to mow it. We were out in California one time for the ASLA, American Society of Landscape Architects, had a convention out there, and we went out there, and this was one of the first times I remember seeing zoysia, and it was growing at one of the state parks. And the extension agent there was talking about, we only have to mow it here in California, about 3 times during the summer. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. But it's just going to be a different IPM program. It's going to be a different turf grass program. So, you can mow it real short.
Get out your pool or something. It's going to get tall. You got to mow it.
You do. You do have to mow it, but it's such a slow grower. We have a zoysia client. We mow it about once a month here. So it just doesn't. I have a colleague at the community college, and she mows hers about 3 times during the spring and summer months. It just doesn't grow that.
Because we're on the coast. And
we're here in Winston-Salem.
Okay, Jacksonville, North Carolina is on the coast, and Wilmington, North Carolina is on the coast. And if you don't mow your zoysia once a week, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So
well, and some people,
it really depends on what you have too. What type of
emerald is what I'm talking about.
So yeah, because I'm in the Raleigh area, and we don't cut it as often either, and it also causes the more you cut it, the more thatching you have in the grass.
Yep. How often do y'all mow it, David?
About every 2 weeks.
About every 2.
Yep.
And are you cutting it with a reel mower, or are you cutting it with a rotary?
Cutting it with rotary.
Yep.
Yeah,
yes,
but we do cut them short.
We don't do lawn maintenance, but this client has somebody else cutting with a rotary, and I want to say they changed mowing people because the lawn looks better now. I think they're cutting it every 10 days is what I think.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, as a lawn care professional, I prefer the fescue because we get more work out of it. Yeah. There's more applications. There's the fall plugging and seeding. It's more of a money maker for us. But that's going to be up to your clients on which route they go when they build their house, or if they're going to go with the warm season or cool season. And like I said, we have more cool season clients here, but we do have, those few that go with the warm season. And probably, David, you're probably what, half and half in the Raleigh area, or?
For all my commercial properties are mostly fescue, but for homeowners and small businesses, technical parts is probably 50-50.
Gotcha. Do y'all overseed with rye or anything, or you just let it go dormant?
Most of them are dormant. There's some that we do in contract. We overseed, with rye once a year, but yeah, they're easy for us for contract wise. They're easy maintenance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
you know, overall too. So it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, fescue is going to start looking bad this time of year. We've got some that don't have irrigation, and the rains are getting far few in between now. So our fescue is getting a little bit crispy. And another reason I like, you know, cool season grass is because we have two applications that make us money. We're going to put out our pre-emergent for the crabgrass, your Digitarius species. And this little critter can produce 2,000 seeds per square foot in a single season. So are we ever going to get rid of crabgrass? We're not, are we? Do we want to get rid of it?
No.
Why is that?
because I got to go back and spray it and kill it every year. It's a moneymaker.
It's a moneymaker. Exactly right. It's.
Yeah, I don't do any lawn maintenance. I do bed maintenance and I do install stuff. So, you know, you're out of my league here.
But crabgrass is going to eat up some of this fescue. It's if we don't put the pre-emergence out, it'll take over. And like I said, we got to go and spray it. Spray what the pre-emergent doesn't prevent from coming up, and we're making good money off of our crabgrass. And so those 2,000 seeds are going to get distributed all over the place. With IPM, what's one way we can reduce crabgrass as a lawn maintenance contractor?
What if you bag it?
Do what?
Bag it as you
Bagging
go.
is a good way. Yeah, that helps. You're bringing that up. But
I beg the lawn people on all of my jobs that I do to bag it, because a lot of times they sling stuff up into the bed. They don't even have a mulching mower. They just sling it up into the bed, and everybody wants to know why there's so many weeds. Well, that's the reason.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my favorite mower is the Walker mower. It is a finicky mower. You got to have an operator that knows what they're doing, but it does a wonderful job of vacuuming up the grass clippings. And I'm a big proponent of that anyway. I know a lot of people like returning the clippings to the lawn, and it works. It does, but there's a big difference when you do 2 yards side by side and one's vacuumed and one's not. You're going to start seeing that thatch build up. And to be honest with you, me visually seeing it, it's going to have just a little bit greener tint to it when you do vacuum it up. So we are all for the vacuuming. Good picture of the crabgrass. Now, when it comes to insects, that's probably where we can use a lot more of these natural pest controls to help us. Knowing this, the common housefly can lay 600 eggs. You know, there's a pair of them. They're going to mature in about 6 days in hot weather. What do you think that reproduction rate is going to look like by the end of the summer if there were no natural pest controls? So first of all, what would be some natural controls for the common housefly other than mama's fly swatter? What is going to kill them? Do what?
The gooey tape that the fly tape.
Yeah. Spiders. And spiders are Mother Nature's #1 pest control.
Oh, and the geckos,
frogs, lizards, birds, other insects. I mean, so the fly, he's got a tough life out there. He's trying to prevent from being killed. But
that's why he likes to get in your house.
Yeah, because he's safe. He's safe.
Why is the house fly?
But given that reproductive rate, an original pair of flies could have enough offspring that in one summer could cover the entire planet in one summer. That means nothing's killing them. If they did not have any natural predators, if weather wasn't getting to them, if the spiders weren't catching them, and each generation itself had 600 and 600 and 600, one summer would cover the entire planet. Not a few feet thick, but thousands of feet thick. So these little guys can multiply quick. And so why has this not happened? because of natural pest controls. So what are some natural pest controls? Anybody want to take a stab at it before we jump into it? What comes to your mind when you're thinking about the natural controls that exist in nature?
Ladybugs eat aphids. I bought ladybugs before to eat aphids.
Yep. So that would be a predator. Predatorial insects. Ladybugs are perfect for that. And they work awesome in the greenhouse setting because they're in a controlled environment. There's also the parasitic wasp, which is a predator that would kill the aphids. What are some other controls?
Seasonal weather.
Pyrethrin?
What, Susan?
Pyrethrin? Isn't that like a biological control?
Yeah. But what about like, existing in nature without us having to use anything? Okay. Willis, you were right. Weather and climate is a big one. Food and habitat. Parasites and parasites. The natural predators, disease. There's a lot of things out there that keep these insects intact or keep them at the level that they need to be. So the most important ones are just what I said: climate and weather, food and habitat, pathogens or the disease that are going to get them, and then predators. And then we have parasites and parasites, which is an awesome way. You got the parasitic wasp, which with the aphids, if you've ever seen an aphid that has a little black hole in the side of it, it means it has been killed by a parasitic wasp. How does that parasitic wasp kill the aphid?
It pierces body. It sucks the fluid out, right?
It pierces the body, but it's injecting the eggs. It's putting the babies inside the aphid.
Okay.
And so what does that aphid provide for those babies?
A host for them to lay eggs.
Yeah. It's nice, warm body. They're protected. And when they hatch, they have a readily available food source. They eat the aphid from the inside out. And that's when you see that little black hole, you'll see where some of these new wasps have, emerged from the aphid. So think about that. Aphids are tiny. They're small. These parasitic wasps are even smaller. So let's examine each one of these natural controls in detail. We've got climate and weather, and we're thinking about the difference here. What is the difference in the two? Well, climate is the long-term overview of temperature and humidity changes in a region. Now, yes, our climate's changing. They're saying we have some global warming going on, which in the long run is going to cause, the earth is heating up, but in the long run, if it melts polar caps and that cold water dumps into the Atlantic, we could have a new ice age, possibly hundreds of years from now, if we keep going at that rate. But climate is a big, big thing. When it changes, a lot of these insects, they'll pack up and they will leave. Weather is the local and short-term variation in climate. And here where we're at, we don't know what our weather's going to be like. And especially up in the mountains of North Carolina, there's even a t-shirt that I've seen, for App State. It says, where else in the world can you see all 4 seasons in one day? You have a very hot part of the day. You wake up, it's cold. It could have snowed the night before. It gets warm, and then it rains. It's all kinds of weather variations in the mountains. And we've noticed that here, especially in the snow removal business. There are periods where we'll have a couple winters in a row where we're pushing snow, and then we may go 5 years where we don't even have a storm. Now, with the tomato hornworm, anybody growing any tomatoes?
Yeah, they're not doing so good this year, though. I haven't seen a hornworm yet, and that surprises me.
And wonder why. Think about the winter. Did y'all have a wet or dry winter?
Wet.
the tomato hornworms do not like the wet winters. When they're down in the ground, a lot of them get drowned out. And so depending on what kind of a winter you have, you may have a bigger outbreak or see more of them when the tomatoes are here. So we've had a wet winter here as well. Now, this is funny. Last year, going to the, we couldn't go anywhere much with COVID, but I did go to a pet store because I had to get some stuff for the dogs. And the pet store owner was selling these for 3 for $15.
The hornworms?
They were selling hornworms. Why were they selling them?
I don't know.
Because
Bearded dragon.
Yes.
Because why?
The bearded dragon.
Oh, they eat them.
Yep.
Okay.
You must have one, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, my son does. A couple things.
Yeah. So do y'all go and find them out in the garden or anything?
Supposedly for like the geckos and stuff, you can't just get regular ones out of the outdoors because they can carry bacteria.
Oh.
So you got to buy, well, it could be a sales ploy, but they say you have to get them.
Created ones.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they don't have bacteria when they grow them, but yeah, supposedly you can't get them right out of nature because of possible bacteria. Gotcha.
Even for the bearded dragons, or is it just for the geckos?
The geckos are worse, but the bearded dragons, you still got to kind of
be careful.
They'll eat kale like crazy.
Wow. Cool deal.
So,
that's some cool stuff. Learn something new every day. The wonderful world of horticulture. It's like I said, that's the best part about being a teacher of it, is learn something new every day. Food and habitat. No food, no organisms. Pests must have something to eat. The simplest non-toxic method of control can be limiting the pest access to the food. Now, we've all seen or had to put like our dog food bowl inside of like another bowl with water around it to keep like ants out of it, to keep cockroaches are out of it. But to be honest with you, I don't care where you live, what zip code, your income level, each house will have some cockroaches. If you look hard enough, you will find it. What's the bad thing about seeing a cockroach run across the floor?
You got a whole bunch of.
No, it's not only one.
Yeah, he's not the only one living there, because they don't want to be out in that bright sunlight. They like where it's cool and damp. They want to be where there's moisture. So they're hanging around the pipes where they sweat and stuff, but they do not want to come in contact with us. So if we see one run across the floor, we've got a problem. That's when we have an infestation, because they are, kicked him to the curb because it's getting too crowded. Habitat is just as important as food. We have an example of the ash aphid on the Modesto ash trees. People like to prune these ash trees like they do the crepe myrtles. So what happens to these trees? What do they produce when they're cut back?
New growth.
The new growth. What'd you say, Chris?
Sap.
They do. They will produce the sap, but they're also getting these water sprouts and these shoots that are going to grow up. And the aphids love this new foliage. They are attracted to it. So within an IPM program, and you see aphids that, aphids will get on crepe myrtles, especially that new burst of, new foliage that's popped out where people
And you get the sooty mold that goes after it.
Huh?
Then you get the sooty mold that goes after it.
Yes. So big problems. Simplest way to do it in an IPM program is not to cut back your trees. Don't crepe myrtle. Don't cut back your ash trees. Let them grow naturally. And if they do produce a water sprout, because a lot of trees will do that at the base or whatever, you just go in and you prune those out, and you are risking the chance. You're reducing your risk of aphids attacking your plants. And as you can see there, it's curling up the leaves. It'll produce, that sap that'll drip It can be hazardous if it's near a sidewalk. People could walk through it, slip on it. If you park a car underneath it, it will actually, deteriorate the paint. So not a good thing to do. Also, these aphids, they have 2 population peaks each season. This corresponds when nitrogen levels are the highest in the foliage, and that's at spring leaf unfold and fall leaf drop. Well, what are we doing both situations here? What are we doing in the spring, and what are we doing in the fall? What are we adding to the soil?
Nitrogen every time.
Nitrogen.
Well, in the fall, we're not adding nitrogen.
In tall fescue, we do. We put out 18, 24, 12 when we plug and seed.
Oh, if you do that to a warm season grass, you're
yeah, it's gonna, yeah. and like I said, most of everything that I write is based on the tall fescue, just because that's 95% of what we see here. But we're plugging and seeding in the fall, and we even come back with a late winter feeding of something like 24, 5, 11. So we're adding nitrogen this time of year. Well, that's when aphids are at their peak. That's when they are absorbing and eating that nitrogen for themselves. So we're kind of creating a problem, and they say not to do it. They say not to create more of a problem with our nitrogen application. So, but we're just going to have to do that. It's a risk that we have to take with our cool seasons. Here's just a quote that I took. It kind of fits with everything that we've gone through the past year, but one can properly think of most human lives as caught in a precarious equilibrium between the micro-parasitism of disease organisms and the macro-parasitism of large-body predators, chief among which have been other human beings. Like I said, we can be the meanest to each other as anything. And that came from William McNeill in Plagues and Peoples. And it's not funny, but I've always been interested in, studying plagues, studying diseases of plants, what affects humans and stuff like that. And then going through what we've all gone through this past year has really opened our eyes to protecting ourselves. But with pathogens, and when it comes to, these insects and these other mammals that may be a problem for us, they are going to get overpopulated. And when they do get overpopulated, they will deplete their resources. They will start going hungry. They will suffer malnutrition, and then they're going to compete for habitat. And this will always lead to disease and war, especially among humans, but it also does within the animal kingdom as well. I remember as a child, never ever seeing deer. Can y'all remember when we never had deer problems? I mean, there was a time we didn't have to worry about deer. They did not exist in our area. When people wanted to deer hunt, they had to go to the mountains. When people wanted to turkey hunt, this was even back in high school for me, 25 years ago, you had to travel to harvest one of these animals to eat. They did not exist here naturally. Now they have. They are in competition for habitat. Human population's growing. It's pushing them out of the woods and pushing them into our neighborhoods. And we're starting to see some malnutrition and diseases develop within these animals just because they are competing. They're competing with us for space, and we are destroying their food. But plants and animals have been doing this long before humans were around. And guess what? They're going to be here long after we are gone. Predators, critical in the suppression of natural populations of animals and plants. Together with pathogens and parasites, they make up the wonderful world of biological control, which is its own specialty in itself. There are companies that manufacture these ladybugs or produce them for greenhouses, for landscapers. And then they are also raising the parasitic wasp. So you can buy all of these biological controls to actually help you with your pest management problem. I think it's harder to do that in the natural landscape, but this makes perfect sense in a greenhouse setting where you do have that controlled environment. So if you were to release these biological controls, they're at least going to stay inside the greenhouse. But
one thing I want to say about the ladybugs, because I did do this before in my vegetable garden, in my home vegetable garden, I bought like 5,000 ladybugs. And what they said was keep them refrigerated and then don't let them all loose at once. Do it in the evening after the garden has been watered and let a few loose, and if there's food, they'll stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so, I did rid everything, I had no aphids. I don't know how many of them stayed and how many of them didn't, but I didn't release them all at one time was the point.
So, I mean, how many did you release at a time?
Well, if you left them on the counter, they were crawling all over the place, but when they were cold, you could stick your hand in there and get maybe 25, 30, and you bring them out in your hand. And when they hit the warm air, they would come alive, and then I would just release them like that. And I did it for a period of I don't know. I had like 5,000 ladybugs, and I did it for a period of maybe a month. Like every night I would go out and release a few more. And it was really a great thing, but I wasn't working then either. I was just had all that kinds of time to release ladybugs. This was, 40 years ago.
Gotcha. Cool. I love stories like that. And that's good hearing the natural, the predators work. They're doing what they're supposed to do for us. Also with predators, we have mammals, we have arthropods, microorganisms, or even fungus. They are the free living general feeders. Now, we did talk a little bit about the spider being Mother Nature's number one pest control. What is the number one pest control for ticks that we don't like? We don't like this critter, but
bats?
No, not for ticks.
That's for mosquitoes.
Yep, bats love mosquitoes. People freak out at them. People do freak out at bats, but they are good for the environment because they eat a ton of mosquitoes every single night.
Just foxes.
What'd you say, Willis? Fox.
Yeah.
Fox for the ticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
What do you
about that?
I don't know.
What about the possum?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Possum can eat up to 5,000 ticks in one summer by itself.
But if they cross the road, it's all over.
It's over. It's over. Then we got possum stew, right? I don't know if I would try that, but the possums are great for the environment. They not only eat ticks, they eat other bad stuff. They don't contract rabies. I mean, they are just one of the coolest creatures to keep around.
How do they not contract rabies?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't get rabies.
That's the second thing I learned today.
Do what?
That's the second thing I learned today.
Oh, cool. They just want to have their little babies on their back and then hang upside down in trees. I mean, they're a really cool animal. They're a little bit creepy, but you know what? They don't want nothing to do with us either. We just need to leave them alone and let them do their thing. But predators, they may eat a single prey at a meal, or like we've been talking about, consume many individuals, just like the convergent lady beetle. Predatory insects, in the larval stage, must consume several prey to attain maturity. So predator adults lay their eggs near populations of prey where the hatching young have a good chance of attaining food. Spiders are the exception to the rule. What do? They
catch their food.
They catch it. They trap it. They will set those webs. And I love watching spiders do their thing. Build their webbing across a light. Why do they build it across a light?
So I can walk into it with my face in the morning.
True. Or worse, when you're mowing underneath a tree and you run through a big web. I always hate that. But why does the spider build their web across an outdoor light, a floodlight?
Because it attracts
more traffic.
The traffic. Those bugs are going to fly right to it. They're smart. They know what they're doing. And you're also going to see them have webbing around like flower pots, any type of situation where the food that they are eating are looking for their own food. So very, very smart. Parasites and parasitoids. What is the difference, and which do you think is more effective? First of all, which one kills the host?
Parasite.
Parasitoid.
Okay, what's the parasitoid? There's a word that I've just not heard before.
Parasitoid would be like your parasitic wasps.
Okay.
Where they're actually going to lay that egg in there, and they will kill the host animal. Parasites, they're just going to
feeds off of it. Parasite feeds off of it. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. And they'll debilitate it, but not necessarily kill it. They're just going to make it sick.
Right.
Example would be like the pinworm. People contract that. Animals contract that. It doesn't kill it, but it does make it sick, and you've got to kind of take care of it.
Is it mistletoe considered a parasite?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Because it lives off the tree, the host tree. So, yep. Parasitoids are the unsung heroes of naturally occurring insect control. They're too small to notice. I mean, we're not going to see them with the naked eye. I mean, if they're injecting their eggs in an aphid, they've got to be smaller. Small. They're tiny. They have no common names, and their scientific names are way too long and difficult to pronounce. So we just don't know enough about them, but they exist, and there are biological companies that are raising them to release into like greenhouse environments. They are members of the insect order with bees and wasps. They are host specific, and they are restricted in the number of species that they can attack. So they are bred for a particular, animal, one being the aphid. And as we can see here, they are injecting their eggs inside of the aphid. And then there's that little round black circle that you would see on an aphid. Better yet, if you stick it under the microscope, and this is where the new wasp emerge after feasting on the aphid from the inside out. And so how do natural controls work? They work all the time. And so why do some pest populations grow so large that they become a problem? One is us. We're
killing them.
Yes, we are. We kill the bats. We kill the spiders. We kill snakes. I mean, snakes are good, especially the black snake. People don't understand. It gets rid of the poisonous snakes. It gets rid of the mice. You're not going to have an issue if you just kind of scoot that black snake on back to the woods. If it gets too close to the house, just move it on. Don't kill it, because it's keeping those other critters away from it. And I'd much rather walk outside and see a black snake than to step on either a copperhead or something like that, which, the black snake's going to get rid of. Two examples of natural controls working. What happens to our houseplants when we bring them inside? In the fall when it starts getting frost and we're wanting to protect them, and they stay inside all winter. Do we start seeing a declination of these plants? They don't look as good by early spring while they're still inside, right? What happens to them?
They dehydrate, but there's other insects, there's other diseases that can affect them. But as soon as we get the spring weather to break and we set them back outside on our patios or on our front porch, they start perking up, don't they? They're in their natural environment, and they are exposing
what's affecting them to the outside environment, and the natural predators can get to these little insects or whatever that has been bothering them while they were inside. They need that fresh air. They need that change of environment. California oak moth. This was a situation in California where their oaks were being defoliated by this oak moth. Now, this is California. So this is a state where pesticide restrictions and regulations are a lot tougher than they are here. But the residents that this was happening to, the first thing that they wanted to do when they seen this moth defoliating their oak trees was they either wanted to make a pesticide application or cut down the tree. Well, nobody really wants to do that. You don't want to cut down an oak tree. I mean, they're good trees and they're beautiful and they do more for us. But the residents were getting a little, leery. They didn't want that moth coming around their house. And so hey, let's drench the tree in a pesticide or let's cut it down. Well, it took 2 agricultural extension agents to look into this a little bit better. They first determined that the oaks were being defoliated during the dry season. Well, do you think that's beneficial for a tree to lose its leaves when it's dry?
Probably.
Yeah. What does that help prevent? Stress. And it doesn't lose water through the leaves with evapotranspiration. That water cannot leave the tree. So what water is there stays. And when these moths were defoliated, and they defoliated it by eating the leaves. They weren't just like cutting it off and letting them drop. They devoured the foliage. So what do you think they were doing while they were eating?
They were pooping everywhere.
They were pooping everywhere. Exactly. And what
we had gypsy moth caterpillars in Long Island when I was living there, and it was disgusting. It was like you couldn't even sit on your picnic table for what was happening.
Yeah. Yep. But with these oak trees, they were eating and they were dropping, fresh manure. Well, when the rains returned, what did these oak trees have readily available for them? Nitrogen. Yes. And the following year, the oak trees were more beautiful than they were ever before. This was a natural occurrence that Mother Nature.
That's a nice story.
It is. I think it was wonderful. But, and it took a couple of ag agents, stepping back and saying, hey, residents, we don't need to cut down these trees. We don't need to make a pesticide application. This is Mother Nature taking care of her oak trees. And we just have to study it and see what's going on in this natural thing. We just didn't understand it. But, that was the most beneficial thing for these oak trees. And so we need to learn more.
Did the moths come back the next year? Did they lay their larvae and all that other stuff that caused this life cycle to come back?
No, it was a period of time, and it was kind of like they moved. So they kind of moved on. So it wasn't a reoccurring thing.
Because I'm having a problem in my garden and in my personal yard with thrips, and I'm trying to figure out how to naturally get rid of them because they're on. Every time I grow something, especially in the vegetable garden, they're overwintering evidently.
Oh, yeah. Could be.
God for that.
Let me think on that with natural stuff, on what we can do. Because being in a vegetable garden.
No, I don't know.
Do what?
I just sprayed some bifenthrin, but I'm not putting that in my vegetables.
I
sprayed ornamentals.
Yeah.
I got it on my dahlias and some of my pentas, and and it'll go on the lantana too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to arrest it in the ornamental beds, but I don't know. I mean, it's coming from the vegetable garden, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it's like I said, it's hard to want to put out any type of chemical, near your garden, much less on it. So it takes a little bit of more research to see what's naturally available for that. But, a lot of people, they don't want to see, holes in their vegetables. Like, think of a head of lettuce that's got little bitty holes in it. What does that tell you? Something's ate on it. But what does a perfect head of lettuce tell you?
That somebody's in it, yeah.
That is what, Chris?
Pesticides.
Pesticides, man. When you cut that lettuce up or whatever and put in your salad, you're not going to see those holes. So I don't mind seeing those holes. It tells me that nothing's been applied to it. So, you lose some of it, but it's not worth putting it.
But I was just wondering if there was an ornamental, like a natural predator for the thrip, for something that I could release in the garden, say that I could, break the life cycle.
Gotcha. Let me look on that, and I will email you that information.
That'd be nice. Thank you.
Because I got a colleague that she is the expert when it comes to garden plants. I had to say I'm more into the turf and ornamentals, but we'll definitely find that out for you and let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But guys, we have to adjust our aesthetic opinions and reactions accordingly. People want to get rid of some of these natural controls just because, they're ugly, they're unsightly. And especially, with the snake, with the bat, they don't want to see it. Most of our serious pest problems arise through accidental and occasionally deliberate but misguided introductions of exotic species, and a list of them would be the indoor cockroach, gypsy moth, Jap beetle, fruit flies, Dutch elm disease, chestnut blight, dandelions. All these were introduced to us, the United States, meaning they were brought over on the ships, with early settlers, and even ships that are coming over now. They're bringing mice, they're bringing all kinds of stuff when they do come over. So how do we breed plants to satisfy human desires? We sometimes destroy traits. Hybrid roses is for one. They're not as tough as grandma's old roses. It's true. We must thoroughly investigate how we can maintain these natural controls when altering plants or combining plant materials from different environments. And that will go back to the designer. A lot of times we're seeing plants that are grouped together in a landscape plan, some that need to be in a xeriscape garden, while others tend to take more water or more or less sunlight. So we've got to know our plants. We've got to know our pesticides. We've got to know our pests. And can anybody tell me the number one reason we have a pesticide failure when we make an application?
We haven't identified the pest properly.
Exactly. Incorrectly identifying the pest. Number one reason we have pesticide failure.
God.
Do what?
So I hope it's strips that I'm telling you that I have.
Oh, good deal. Good deal. All right. So that kind of concludes it. I'm going to stop the share. Do you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns?
On landscape credits,
Mm-hmm.
Can we download one that you already have, or on your website?
Yes, I have 7 hours available on the website that you can download and take at your convenience. You can purchase the whole course, which has all 7 together, or you can do them individually. It's however you want to do it.
Do you know anybody good for irrigation credits?
I do a lot of irrigation on the same website. Just look under NCICLB courses.
Okay.
And I have probably 30 courses up for that.
All right.
But see, now, if you got them last year in 2020, they're good for the next year. They're good for 2 years.
Yeah, the COVID restrictions. Yep.
But
yeah,
I'm 2022 and I need like 7 more pesticides. I've been neglectful of my pesticide credits. So
gotcha.
Hey, Eric, I lost you for about the last 7 minutes. I just got back on.
Oh.
So what do I need to do? Just scratch this one and start over next week, or what do I need to do?
For what?
For my my class for tonight.
What do you mean scratch it?
Do I just count the night off and not worry about tonight's credit?
You have a pesticide license, don't you?
I do, yeah.
You'll get
I just
pesticide
got
credit for it.
scratched.
Do what?
I just got kicked off. The internet just kicked me off, and I just now got right back on.
Oh no, you're fine. I mean, I mean, to be honest with you, I kept seeing your picture there. Yeah, and I mean, we're over an hour because I opened this up about 5 till, so you're safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the confirmation on last Thursday night's first meeting.
The first one, which would have been
last Thursday night. Because I already had the second one that you was doing. I didn't even go to that class, but I didn't get.
So you need your proof of attendance for the first one.
Yes, sir.
All right, and that would have been
proof of attendance.
7/9/21. Proof for first class.
Yes.
Yep, I'll get that to you as soon as we hang up.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Susan, do you have a question?
Yeah, you email proof of attendance. Is that how that is?
Well, for this class, there's no proof of attendance. What I do is, as soon as the class is over, I go to the Department of Ag's website and I type in your full name and your license number, and you'll see it apply to your pesticide license probably within a week.
Okay.
They're not as quick as landscape contractors. If I mail a roster to the contractors board, they'll get it up that day, but they require me only to do rosters every Friday. So anybody that purchases a course like over the weekend, I'll send in the rosters the following Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then you'll get a proof of attendance for if it's a landscape course, landscape contractor course.
The 4 credits that the Landscape Contractors Board accepts from pesticide, those pesticide credits still have to be entered by the instructor, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So if they didn't, if it wasn't approved for pesticide credits, then it's not gonna go through.
Yeah.
To your landscape.
What happens in the way the boards wrote that up is, let's say you went to a convention and you got 3 landscape credits that also gave you 3 pesticide credits. And then you went to another convention and picked up 2 L credits and that were also approved for pesticides. That gives you 5 landscape credits that could be applied to your landscape contractor's license, but they're going to subtract 1 because they're only going to let you get 4 landscape hours that's also been approved by the Department of Ag for pesticides. They want it to be
credits. Because then you got to have your business credits.
You got to have your business credits too, but they're only allowing 4 landscape credits that's been approved by the Department of Ag for pesticide credit. You can't get all 5 of your landscape hours
on pesticide.
That was from a pesticide environment. They want to at least, have 1 hour that's, talking about, like a retaining wall or something else within the landscape contracting industry. So any other questions?
We have to look to make sure that the pesticide credit also has a landscape credit for it.
Yep. And usually when somebody puts on a course like that, they should advertise to you and say, hey, this is good for 1 pesticide and 1 landscape credit. But I even see, ag agents that can't distinguish the difference. They just put together some topics and submit it to the boards and hope that it gets approved. And it's a finicky thing. So that's why, like with my 7 hours, I usually just keep it to 2 pesticides. I'll get 2 of them approved. And within this year's landscape classes, it was applying the correct amount of pesticide and then label calculations. So, this course here, Natural Pest Control, was approved, was 3 or 4 years ago by Landscape Contractors Board. And then they won't let me get this course approved again for landscape credit for like 5 years. They don't want to see it, in the rotation because they want the contractors to get different, different topics and different subject matters. So,
well, because they don't want you to take the same thing every year either, probably.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it's like every 3 years. So it's best
This is my first webinar and I did enjoy it. So there you go.
Cool. We'll appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate it, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. And I thank you guys so much. And like I said, we'll have we'll have a business and a landscape credit this coming Thursday. Thank y'all. See ya.